Well, we are in the middle of a series called How To. And the reason we're running this series is because many of us know what we ought to do when it comes to the Christian life. I ought to pray and I ought to hear God's voice and I ought to be involved. Many of us know what we ought to do, and often we're really good at saying this is what we ought to do. And yet sometimes we don't talk so much about how to do the things that we know we ought to do. And so we're taking 4 Sunday nights to talk about the topic of how to. And last Sunday night, we talked about how to hear the voice of God. I loved last Sunday night in church. You know, last Sunday night we had 11 people make first-time commitments to Jesus in church last Sunday night here in Townsville, which I just think is brilliant. And so tonight, we want to talk about how to share your faith, because you ask any Christian who's been saved for any number of weeks, and most of us would agree, I probably should be talking to people about my faith. If you've been around church long enough, you would know the big kind of Bible type word, evangelism. Maybe you don't know it as evangelism, you just sense I probably should tell people about Jesus, but you're not really sure kind of how to do that. Well, tonight we're going to go there. We're going to start in John chapter 1 and verse 35. If you don't have a Bible here, it will be up on the screen. John 1, verse 35 to 49. It says this: the following day, John the Baptist, was again standing with 2 of his disciples. As Jesus walked by, John looked at him and declared, "Look, there is the Lamb of God." When John's 2 disciples heard this, they followed Jesus. Jesus looked around and saw them following and said, "What do you guys want?" Don't you love that? Like 2 guys just following you down the strand. Oi, what do you want? That's Jesus. These guys were ghost walking Jesus. And Jesus says, "What do you want?" And they replied, "Rabbi," which means teacher. "Where are you staying?" "Come and see," Jesus said. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they went with him to the place where he was staying, and they remained with him the rest of the day. Andrew, that is Simon Peter's brother, was one of these men who heard what John said, then followed Jesus. Andrew went to find his brother Simon and told Simon, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. Then Andrew brought Simon to meet Jesus. Looking intently at Simon, Jesus said, "Your name is Simon, son of John, but you will be called Cephas," which means Peter. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. And in Galilee, he found Philip and said to Philip, "Come follow me." Well, Philip was from Bethsaida, Andrew and Peter's hometown. Philip then went to look for Nathanael and told him, "We've found the very person that Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth." "Nazareth?" exclaimed Nathanael. "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" It was like a first century guru. Can anything good? Moving right along. "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Well, Philip replied, "Well, come and see for yourself." As they approached, Jesus said, "Now here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity." "How do you know about me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus replied, "I could see you under the fig tree before Philip even found you." Then Nathanael exclaimed, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel." It all begins with one. Everyone say one. It all begins with one person. This passage begins with one person, John the Baptist, and John is the only one who knows who Jesus is and understands Jesus' true identity as the Son of God and the Messiah of Israel. Well, John the Baptist happens to have 2 friends called Andrew and John. John, the disciple at that point, was just a teenager. Well, John the Baptist points out Jesus to his 2 friends and encourages Andrew and John, "Hey, you've got to meet this Jesus guy." And so they do. And so 1 is now 3. Well, Andrew has a brother called Simon, and Simon had a few concepts about God, but he hadn't yet met Jesus, and so then we would, in today's terms, call Simon a spiritual seeker. He knew a few things about God and had a few concepts, but he didn't yet know Jesus, and so Andrew tells Simon, "Oi, Simon, you need to go and meet Jesus as well. Well, also Simon goes and meets Jesus, and that goes way better than expected. No sooner has Simon met Jesus that Jesus has changed his name, and Simon becomes Peter, and then Peter becomes Saint Peter, becomes the rock of the early church, and now we know him as Peter, the leader of the early church. But it wasn't always that way. He was just kind of Andrew's brother who didn't yet know Jesus. You would be amazed at the plans God has got for your unsaved friends. And so now, 1 has turned to 3, which has turned to 4. And now that Andrew and Peter have met Jesus, they're from Bethsaida, and so Jesus goes and hangs out at their hometown, which happens to be where Philip lives. And so now Philip has met Jesus, and so 1 has become 5. And then Philip has a mate called Nathaniel, and Philip thinks, man, Nathaniel has got to meet Jesus. And so then Nathaniel comes to know Jesus. In fact, more correctly, Nathaniel comes to realize that he is known by Jesus. And so here, in the space of 24 hours, 1 turns into 6. Got that right. 1 follower of Christ turns into 6 followers of Christ in 24 hours. You know what? When John nudged his 2 mates and said, oi, that's Jesus, you ought to pay attention to him, John had no idea that 24 hours later, that little nudge and comment and invitation would turn into 6 people following Jesus and an entire destiny transformed. You know, today there are some 2.2 billion people who worship Jesus as God, and it started with 1. And it wasn't rocket science. It wasn't super complicated. It wasn't a pyramid scheme. It was just John. I don't even know if he had been to Bible college yet. It was just John saying, oi, I know Jesus. You should go check him out. And now 1 has become 2.2 billion people. Here's the point. When you and I take a step to share our faith, we just don't know what God can do with that little invitation. Do you catch what I'm saying tonight? Now, when it comes to sharing things that we love, sometimes I think that was a little video link sound thing coming through. Sometimes when it comes to sharing our faith, we overcomplicate things and we stress out. But the truth is, sharing the things that we love is actually the most natural thing in the world. When I find an album that I love, the first thing that I do is tell people about the album that I love. If I find a cafe that make good coffee, I tell all the other coffee snobs in Townsville, but Calvin Smith already knows because he invented coffee. If I find a restaurant that I love, what do? I tell people. If I get a good meal, what do? You do what we all do. You take a photo and you share it with all of your followers, all 2 of them, and they really appreciate your share. And so here's the point. Sometimes when it comes to sharing our faith, we worry ourselves into a spiritual paralysis because we think, well, what if I share my faith and someone thinks I'm weird? They probably already do. What if I share my faith and someone thinks that I'm being pushy? What if I share my faith and someone's got questions that I don't know the answer to? And so we worry ourselves into a type of evangelistic paralysis. But I just believe that sharing our faith is not as complicated as we imagine it to be. And so tonight we're going to hear from a number of different people in our church who have shared their faith with friends or colleagues or neighbors and just see what's come of it. Now, we're not just going to hear from those people who shared their faith, because otherwise they could make themselves out to be heroes. We're actually going to hear not just from the inviter, but we're going to hear from the invited, to hear what was happening in each one's mind. And I just think that through all of this, we can learn some keys about sharing our faith. Is that okay? And so the first people we're going to welcome to the stage, I'd love it if you would give them a huge ovation as they come. We're going to welcome Adam and Lauren Cavu and John and Carly Williams to the platform. Why don't we give them a round of applause as they come? And this is baby Darcy, who we dedicated in church a few weeks ago. And since we dedicated, he's not cried once and not pooped his nappy either. That's certainly what I'm believing when we have a child. All right, so Carly, John, Lauren, Adam. We need some microphones up here, if we could just get them. I can't really kickstart until I've got a microphone, unless Adam just wanted to do a little dance for us. Was that a little bit of whip it and nay nay? In case you don't know, Adam is actually, I was going to say a closet Backstreet Boys fan, but it's very public. If you ever want to hear a Backstreet Boys song, brought out in a stirring rendition, talk to Adam. Lauren, talk to me about how you guys met, John and Carly.
We moved in next door. We moved into a couple who were already coming to church, and they moved away, Tim and Emma Glenn. And we went to their place for dinner, and they said that they were moving and they were renting their house. So we liked their house, and their street seemed really nice and quiet. It was a Saturday night, and it was getting late, and it was still quiet. And so we moved in. We'd heard Tim and Emma said, now you got to keep the lawn tidy. If you don't, the neighbours will eyeball you. And but they didn't.
So John, Adam and Lauren move in. When did you find out that they were people of faith? Like, Adam and Lauren don't look like the Flanders off The Simpsons. Mrs. Flanders doesn't have the side of her head shaved. And so how did you come to know that they were church-going people of faith? Did that come up naturally, or how did you come to know that?
Well, Carly was actually going to church already. I wasn't part of the church still at that moment. Carly told me that that they were Christian people, and so it was they weren't weird, and they moved in. But
clearly you don't know them that well yet.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of Adam and Lauren?
I'm pretty open to everyone. It was good seeing Adam. He was around, so we pretty much made him welcome as soon as he came into the street, because we've got a pretty good street.
Right.
Get out there and just meet people, and you work out what they're like pretty quick.
Okay, so you thought they're Christian people, but they're not too weird, and I reckon we could get along okay. That's basically the summary. Carly, you had a bit of a church background. Talk to us about where you were at, because you had kind of come to church here once or twice, or a couple of times, but not really connected in. And then Calvary people move in next door. What was going through your head at that point?
I'd always been to church when I was a kid, gone to an AOG church in New South Wales, but it was just good for me to have Adam next door to try and get the nudge for John to get him to come to church. But I guess Pastor Craig helped with that as well when we did the marriage counselling, so that was good.
So you guys had done pre-marriage counselling with Craig a few years earlier. John, what did you think of Craig and pre-marriage counselling? Because you're not a churchy, and Craig.
For me, it was really good for Craig to introduce me into it.
Right.
It was relaxing. It wasn't up front and trying to drag you in. You need to come. You need to have a Bible in your hand and be there. It was just being relaxed and part of a family.
Right. So Adam, were you targeting John, zeroing in like a heat-seeking missile, I will save that guy, kind of pouring communion over his lawn and...
He went with the Bible once.
Because obviously, you wanted to see John come in and get connected to church, but how did you go about that? Because obviously you did something right, because he's not just in church, he's on the platform, so things escalated quickly. So talk to us about what was your strategy, for want of a better word?
I think for me it's just more friendship. So I mow my yard and I kind of go around to their side just to, mow the yard as well when John is away at the mine and...
Right,
yeah,
okay, so
there's
that's a good point. John, you were working away at the mines. How long were you away for at a time?
I was anywhere up to 8 weeks.
Wow. So while he's away, Adam, you think, you know what, I could help out just by mowing their lawn. You better not turn this into a shameless plug for your lawn mowing business, by the way.
No.
Just make sure there's no big screen slide up on... Okay, so you think, you know what, I could mow their lawn.
Yeah, so I just do it, but not they're away, so I just mow it for them. And John, he's a loving person. He came out and talked with me, so we have a chat, and I just have a thought man, I want to get to know this person. I want to get to know him. I don't have any strategy, but I just want to have a friend, like have someone that
Right.
I can hang out with. So I asked him, let's go out for coffee and just have a chat. And so we went out for coffee. But
Can I jump in at that point there? I reckon Adam's just said something that's key, and that is that Adam decided, you know what, I just want to make a friend. Sometimes we see unsaved friends or colleagues as a project to accomplish. Their salvation is my project, rather than just, you know what, they're a person that I could be a friend to, and there's a need there. They probably need their lawn mowed. I could probably do that. That's red frogs. See a need, meet a need. And it's amazing how doors open up when you do that. Sorry, keep going.
so yeah, just basically we went out for coffee, hang out, and I think our conversation is not about God. We just talk about work and just talk about normal things. But as a Christian, you in your mind you want to invite them to church, but you don't want to, like pushy. And so we just hang out and we just talked about things. But I've just been blown away by John. Like, he's so open and really, and I knew in my mind that John really trusts me.
Right.
Because he open, and even for myself, I trust him as well. And we talked about deep things. So it's from there.
John, when you came to church then, first impression?
Well, first time I actually came to church, you were actually preaching.
And you came back. There is a God.
No, it was really good for me because you were actually preaching about stuff that I could relate to with my work and things that I believe in. It was actually relevant to my life at the time.
Right. Carly, for you, how valuable was it to you knowing that you had a neighbour who wasn't Bible bashing your husband but was building a friendship? What was going through your mind that whole time?
I was just grateful that they were there, actually. And obviously, Lauren and I get along as well. John's only been coming to church regularly since October last year because that's when he stopped working away. So it was just awesome to have Adam just help to show that everyone's normal, and, just
Right.
to come and just to have him by my side at church was awesome. So
It's pretty cool that, sometimes the best form of evangelism is just to prove that we're not that weird. Like, we're actually just normal people who believe in a loving, good God. That's brilliant. Lauren, final question. For your faith and confidence, what's it done for you now? Like, you come to church on a Sunday and now your neighbours are in church. And to see them, John and Carly, getting Darcy dedicated, what's that done for your faith?
It's awesome. It's very easy to drop church into any conversation, I think, especially our church. I tend to do grocery shopping every Wednesday after girl time, and they, how are you? How are you? Yep, good. And how's your day? Yeah, great. I just came from church. Like, it's just so easy to drop it into conversation, and to think that has turned into people being at church, getting involved, loving
Right.
church. It's helping not just, you throw it out there, but you never know where it's going to land. And
Yeah.
so to think that now these guys are in church, they're raising their son up in a godly family, and, their marriage is, being supported by this greater family as well. Like, it's awesome. So for my faith, it's strengthened me, it's challenged me, I think. We're now in a new street with new neighbours, and it's not like our old street.
All right, keep it moving. It's getting
We
a bit
miss
soppy.
you.
I am told that John and Adam have a bit of a bromance going on, so whatever that may
Carly.
mean. Hey, you guys are just a great example, both of you, of raising young families, being real about your faith, and, the whole saying, love thy neighbour, kind of taking it seriously. And so your story, I think, is just really encouraging. That, it's not rocket science, it's just being kind to your neighbours and being genuine and being good friends. Why don't we give all these guys a good round of applause. Thank you, Darcy, for not crying. And while you're giving applause, why don't we welcome to the platform Dee Ward and Andrea Steinhardt. Very good. Dee has been coming to our church for how long?
6 years.
6 years. And Andrea has been coming to our church for how long?
3 months.
3 months. You're fresh.
I am raw as they come. Was that wrong?
Andrea,
Hi! Sorry, they're my friends.
Yeah, we've got Marty
Where are your
girls
friends
here.
from?
Hello.
From work.
Theatre.
Hello.
just to give a bit of context, because everyone's like, why is she waving randomly? Dee and Andrea work at the Mater Hospital in the maternity ward.
I'm in theatre.
I'm maternity.
Theatre and maternity,
Yeah.
and some of the guys have come from work. Who have we got here? Just give us a wave.
Yay!
Come on, let's welcome all of our friends from the Mater. Now, both of you are clinical educators at the Mater Hospital. Andrea's been coming for a couple of months. Andrea, how long have you known Dee?
I've known Dee for about 3 to 4 years because we're both educators, so we tend to have to go to all the same meetings and all that sort of stuff together. And because we're quite separated from the main campus, there's only the two of us together, so we kind of have to support each other, otherwise there's no one to support us.
You
there.
kind of have to
So-
be friends.
So we kind of had to be friends, yeah.
That's the start of every great friendship.
Yeah, that didn't come out real good, did it?
No. So, tell us, do you have any faith background? You've been coming to Calvary for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
What was your religious faith context prior to the last 3 months?
I was raised Catholic and pretty strictly so. I had an aunt that was a nun, an uncle that was a priest, so, it doesn't get too much stricter than that, really. But we just went to church and we did the things that we had to do. You go to church, you pray, you line up the pews and make up your sin, you get blessed.
Did you just say
and-
make up a sin?
Yeah. Well, my sister and I used to take turns at okay, you say you were mean to my brother, I'll say I was mean to you, I'll say I fought with dad, you say you fought with mum, so we wouldn't have the same sin.
You never thought of making up the sin of, say, lying?
Well, shush. That's rude. No, because
Who likes Andrea already?
we weren't technically lying because they wanted us to say something, so we had to. Otherwise, God wouldn't forgive us.
All right,
God didn't
so
forgive us,
but
we'd be in
let's
trouble.
not chase that
Okay.
rabbit too far.
All right, okay.
So, when did you've worked with Dee for how many years was it?
Nearly 4 years.
Nearly
probably.
4 years?
Yep.
When did you come to realise that Dee was, a churchy?
Churchy, yeah. I realised she was, I've known Dee for ages, and I think she was probably trying to send me little messages the whole time, but I was in a very dark place at work. So, probably about 3.5 months ago, because we were Facebook friends, I saw she went down to the Sunshine Coast and she was reading these churchy books. And I went, I think she's churchy. And at the
Now,
time...
did that change your perception of Dee?
No, it made me realise, because I had been searching for a while to find something to make me a stronger person, because I
Right.
really needed that support, because I was going through a lot of grief in my life. So when I saw that, I thought, maybe she's the link I need.
Right.
So no, it didn't deter me at all. So,
Now, sorry to jump
You're
in,
right.
but did you respect Dee professionally?
Oh, absolutely. She's a very clever girl. She's amazing. She's smart. She's so dedicated. And she had her own colour printer, which I could use anytime I wanted.
That's on a down low.
Oh, yeah, no one knows that now. But we have our own colour printer.
Some of
now,
you
so I
have
don't
been
need
praying
it.
for unsaved friends for years, and you just need to buy a colour printer. That's what you've been missing.
Love her.
Can I just point something out there? Dee, we'll hear from you in a moment,
Just,
because I've got a feeling if we don't intentionalise that, it could just run away.
sorry.
I think there's a good point to bring out there. Dee had been working with Andrea for years before Andrea realised she's a Christian. Now, some of us in our mind right there thought, oh, what kind of a Christian is she? Like, doesn't she leave the Bible open in the staff room lunch table? Like, seriously. There's a great quote by Martin Luther where Martin Luther said, the Christian shoemaker does his work not by putting little crosses on shoes, but by making excellent shoes.
Yes.
I love that quote.
Yep.
One of the best ways that you represent Christ in your workplace is not by drawing crosses on everything. One of the best ways you represent Christ is by being the very best that you can be at what you do. And note, because of that, when Andrea finds out that Dee's a Christian, it's not like, there was already a platform of respect because of professionally what she did, upon which faith could then be built. Dee, what were your thoughts along that? Were you thinking, I reckon Andrea is close to faith, or were you just thinking, Andrea is just a good friend at work?
I think for the couple of years prior, she asked me if I'd be her mentor. And obviously there's a little bit of an age difference, and I thought that was really lovely
She's
that she
older.
was, she was thinking that way. But I think because I've always at work tried to build a culture of positivity and not reacting to issues in the workplace, but responding.
Right.
That when she did come to me and always ask for advice, I was, trying to maybe not do the reacting, but the responding.
Right.
Yeah. So when she did ask me about what did you call, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So go
Let's
on.
pick up the story there. So you see, oh my goodness, she's a churchy. Via Facebook, and then you were telling me sometime after that, not too long after that, you reached a point where you needed to reach out for help. Talk to me about that.
Okay, I had been having a really terrible time in my life at that stage, and for every step forward I was taking, I was sort of pushed 3 steps back. So I'd gone through a really bad day where I'd been sort of told again how useless and horrible and bad I was. And so I went seeking for some help and I couldn't find it. So I went to this garden and I sat there and I just cried and I just said, Jesus, if you're real, I've run out of options. You're the last tick on the box. If you're real, do something, because if I find a really big tree on the way home, I'm just going to hit it with my car and be done with it, because I was over it.
Right.
I was so there. So obviously there was no big
Sorry,
tree.
this was how many months ago? 3 months?
This has probably been about 3.5 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And even though I have so much to live for, just with my beautiful husband and my beautiful daughter, and my beautiful son, I just didn't want to do it anymore because it was just hurting way too much. But anyway, so there's no big tree, so I thought, maybe he's listening. And then within a couple of days, I sort of ran into Dee, and I saw Dee as just this different person. I mean, I knew she was amazing, but all of a sudden I thought, hey, I kind of added 1 and 1 together and got 3,000. So I thought, I need to ask her. So then I thought, okay, I'll ring her. Okay, so then I spent an hour going, what will I say? How do I say it? You'll say, hey, dude, can you fix me up? Oh, no, can you make me better? How are you so happy? And no, I won't ask, I will ask. And I went, just do it. And I went, so I rang her, I said, hey.
And then she said, I saw that, I was driving along the road and an Instagram post came up and it was one of your positivity ones that you keep putting up. She said, I want to hang around some of your positive people.
What was the Instagram post?
I don't know.
I don't know. I can't even
You're
remember.
always posting positive
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
though,
she
I
does
follow
to
you.
me.
It's crazy.
You don't just don't read them and once.
Way
Flick,
so
flick,
positive.
flick.
All right, so
So at
that turned into...
I knew right at that point, on the journey of becoming friends with people and building relationships, you get that feeling from the Holy Spirit of when to say something.
Right.
And I just knew right then, I didn't know she was going to wanting to hit a tree or anything, but I just knew, do you want to come to Connect? I've got all these lovely women. We do a Women in Leadership Connect. It's for career women. Do you want to come? It's on Tuesday. And this was on Saturday. And she's like...
Yes.
So you go to Connect,
Yes.
and in a couple of sentences, what was that like?
Oh, it just blew my head off. All these women in the room actually being nice to each other was amazing, for starters. Girls, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, okay. I think they understand that. And
All
no,
the guys are like,
because you don't talk. Anyway, so I'm so sorry. Stop, hit me. So anyway, it was amazing. So much happiness and joy, and we drank beautiful tea.
Oh, yeah, we do high tea.
Yeah, we do
It's
high
very lovely.
tea.
and Narissa spoke.
She did.
Narissa spoke that night, and honestly, all the words that she said were like they were coming out of my own mouth. And I actually downloaded the Bible on my phone there as we were speaking and listening, and tried to figure out how to use it. And all the way home, I just cried and cried and cried and cried because I finally thought, I have found somewhere to become strong in.
You come to church for a couple of Sundays before you lift your hand and respond to Jesus.
Yes.
What's been the biggest change in your life since then? Because you're when you're sharing your story, we're not talking about 6 years ago. We're talking about like 3.5 months ago.
The biggest change in my world is that before all the terrible things at work started happening to me, I was a very positive person and very happy all the time, and I lost that. And everyone now says to me, you know, you're back, you know, and I've said, I keep saying I never went anywhere. Then I think, oh, maybe I kind of did. And now I've got a couple of friends at work that are going through some serious stuff as well, and I've just been friends with them and supporting them and catching up with coffee with them for a while. And I was talking to one of them the other day, and she said, you know, Andrea, I've seen you where you've come from. You look so amazing now, and you're so, you know, your personality's so different. And she says, I want to be with people that are positive just like you.
That's cool.
So she's coming to Connect on Tuesday night as well. So that's the biggest thing for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've got one more thing to add there.
Yeah.
So both my student midwives come to the Connect as well, which is awesome. And because they have to, don't have to.
They don't pass otherwise.
We put lots of positive things after the Connect. Everyone raves about it. And another girl's like, can I come to your Connect from work? So we've got 5 people just in maternity, a heap from theatre, and the executive director of missions at the Mater, Trudy, she ended up having coffee with me, and I was telling her about just the culture change, and Jesus is just doing things at our workplace. Yep. And she just said to say tonight that she would have loved to have been here, but she's like, she's just seen the difference in Andrew as well, and just our workplace is totally transformed.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Come on, let's give Dee and Andrea a round of applause. Now, you're getting water baptised in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes. So I'll be having my own personal posse come to watch me do that. And I've been told I have to wear appropriate clothes. It's not a wet t-shirt competition. So little fun.
You know that part at the start about not saying inappropriate things?
Oh, that was one of them. Okay. I'll do your trick. Let's rewind.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Again.
Hey, thanks for sharing part of your story.
You're welcome.
We love you. And Dee, you're a great role model in our church. Come on, why don't we give Dee and Andrea a round of applause. Thanks, guys. All right. We're a little bit pressed for time, but I'm enjoying this. Is this okay? We've got just one more group of people that we want to meet. I want to welcome up to the platform Amy Storening with Morgan and Ryan as well, who are going to come and make their way up. Come on, let's give them a round of applause as they come. Very good. We'll start with Amy. Amy, Amy runs all of our Arvo Sesh on a Sunday. If you arrive anytime from kind of 5:30, all the young adult uni dinner that's happening out there, Amy runs all that and does a tremendous job. Amy, how long have you been coming to Calvary?
I started coming to Calvary July last year. So what's that? A year and July, August, September. 15 months. Yeah, that one. 15
months. And church background, no church background?
Absolutely no church background. My cousin and my auntie are Christians, but aside from, they never even spoke to me about it. I didn't even really know. Aside from that, come from a pretty dysfunctional family. No concept of God, Jesus is just not in my life.
Right. So then you were living up in Cairns, but came to Townsville. And in Townsville, you met James Townsend.
Yes.
Who was coming to Calvary. How did you come to meet James?
So I was on the Tablelands. I had finished high school, deferred uni for 12 months. I was going to take 12 months off, living with my boyfriend, working, saving money. Thought life was all great. And then after a few months of that, just realised super dysfunctional relationship, getting drunk every weekend, parties. It was just week in, week out, same thing. And I was like, nah, had enough. Changed my deferral from 12 months to 6 months. And my best friend's sister lived in a uni share house down in Townsville, and about a week before I moved down here, crazily, by some miracle, her friend moved out of the house, so there was a spare room, and I moved in, and James Townsend lived in that house as well.
So you move into a uni share accommodation house. You've just broken up with your boyfriend. Life's in a pretty rough spot. And you meet Saint James Townsend. Now, James Townsend has since moved from Townsville to Cairns, but wouldn't you know it, we have a Calvary in Cairns. And so James is now a key part of our Cairns congregation, and we're actually going to live link now with James Townsend. Can we get James up on the screen? There he is. James, there was a massive cheer from heaps of single girls when you came up on the screen. But
Hey, yeah.
that was a test. All right. James, we're not putting you up to anything, mate. So Amy, I don't need to look that way. I should look that way. Amy moves into your uni share accommodation house, and how did you come to broach the topic of faith with her? Because she had no church background.
Yeah, sure. I think it was very much a God thing. You know, I think I was asking God for opportunities in order to speak to her life. And the best way I found to invite some friends around from church for some dinner, some board games, stuff like that, and invite Amy along to that as well, so that you can get to know some of those people and see that we're not all really weird and we're just normal people.
So you invite other friends from church over for dinner and board games. Amy, what did you think about his friends?
It didn't even really, I didn't think about it. I knew that they were from church, but I was so neutral with the whole thing. I was pretty open-minded. I didn't have this dead set idea of like, God's not real, but I didn't believe in God either. So I was just like, yeah, they're lovely people, cool people. Didn't have a problem with any of them. Good job, James.
Now, you had like some very small amount of experience in church, but kind of more from a Catholic paradigm. Now, there are some great Catholic people who love Jesus. But your perspective on Christianity was a little skewed. Did you start to talk to James then about faith? How did that come about?
Yeah, so after I'd been living with James for a little bit, he probably remembers this very well, there was a point where I asked him, I was like, so what is the difference between Christianity and Catholicism? Like, what is the go there? I have no idea. And because we'd built that relationship, I lived with him. I saw that he came to church every Sunday, and he did kids in the morning, and he was serving, and he was doing Red Frogs, and he's a med student, and like just did all these things for God and all these great. In my mind, it wasn't he did all these things for God. He just did these things for people. He was great with people, and so I trusted him, and I was like, what are the differences? And we sat in the kitchen like an hour or two and just chatted, and he explained to me that there is actually a difference between Christianity and Catholicism. I didn't even realise that. There you go.
James, what were you thinking at that moment? Like, you've been praying to God for an opportunity, and then she comes up and says, excuse me, what's the difference between Catholicism and Christianity?
Just asked a massive doctrinal question. I was like, oh, I haven't prepared for this. No, I think it just really highlighted how good God is and how if you're willing to ask for opportunities to share your faith, He will provide that. And to have Amy come out and just ask straight away without me having to sort of harass her about it was just great.
It's always good when you don't have to harass people. So Amy, you over the course of time come to church. First thoughts of church?
I was really neutral. Like I kind of did have this idea that churches were quite old-fashioned, quite, I guess, prudish. But I didn't expect Calvary, but I also knew that it wouldn't be like that. So I walked in and I was kind of like, oh, this is different. But yeah, I was super neutral. I wasn't like, wow, this is amazing, or oh my gosh, this is weird. I was just like soaking it in, like, okay, yep.
Let me jump in there. James, were you a little bit disappointed? Like, you find she's coming to church and you think, yes, heavens are going to open and she's going to get saved and there's going to be an audible voice and a dove and a leprechaun. I don't know about the leprechaun, but all these things. And then she comes and she's like, yeah, that's pretty good. Were you kind of like, God?
I think it's very easy to initially feel that, but I had experiences in the past where people have been quite steady and slow to coming to know Jesus, and I've just found that if people are willing to ask questions and really think about why they're believing something, they often have more staying power. So I think just through past experiences, I've learned to trust God with that and know that, plant that seed, and if God wants to make that grow, He will.
Right. So, Amy, you, over a matter of time, give your life to Jesus, and then the relationship then turns from, I guess, winning someone to Christ to discipling someone in their faith. What did James do? Because you're still in church.
Yeah.
A lot of people make decisions but don't go on with it. You've not only gone on with it, now you're leading ministry teams. What did James do well?
I think what James did really well was that he was always there when I had a question, and
Literally, because he lived there.
he had no choice. It was like knock knock on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning. You awake? I just don't understand the scripture. I'm sorry about that, by the way, but thank you.
James, was that kind of like exciting? Were you like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning?
I don't know. I just feel that it's so good to have people interested, and so yeah.
James, what's your address? Because there's a lot of people here who read their Bible late at night and just want to come and get some. Now, you might be thinking, where do these other guys come into it? So, Amy, you then meet Morgan at church. Morgan had been coming a bit, but had not really connected in yet. And Morgan, you were telling me earlier that you were sitting on the beach praying one day. What were you praying?
So basically I was praying for friends. So I left church and I had been sitting by myself at church, and I was like, I'm just going to go to the beach and kind of get away. And so I went to the beach and I just said, Lord, like, if this is where you want me to be for the next 6 months, like, I'm really going to need some friends to enjoy it, because I would go home to my host family who didn't believe in God. We're getting there. And so it was just really hard. So I was just like, Lord, I need some friends. And
then the next day, you meet Amy.
Literally the next day.
Literally the next day, I meet Amy through Red Frogs, and I told her I was like a bit intimidated by her because I knew she was 19, but she's so confident in herself, and it was like a good intimidation. But I was like, I want to get to know this girl, so I texted her after Red Frogs the next day, and I said, hey, you want to go get dinner with me? And she said yes, so we sat at longboards, and we just basically told our life stories to each other, and I think, like, she's my best friend. Like, I read her a prayer yesterday going to the Tablelands from May, when I had been praying for a friend before I even got to Australia, and I just believe that she's that friend.
That's beautiful. It's pretty cool that you can be the answer to someone's prayer. I honestly believe that, just by being a good friend. So then, Morgan, you're a nanny, and you get Harriet involved in church. She couldn't be here tonight. She was desperate to come up, but she's at home sick. And so you invite Harriet along to church. She gives her life to Jesus. Yeah. How old's Harriet?
19. 19.
About 19. And then Harriet connects Ryan into church. Ryan, you're from, whereabouts is home?
I'm from LA.
LA. Why would you want to live in LA when you can live in Mount Louisa? And so you find yourself in Townsville, and there's a bit of a nanny network on Facebook, or au pair, is that what they're called?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
But nanny to the layman. And so you come to church through Harriet. What was your first thought of church?
Well, I was raised Catholic, so Catholic is everybody does the same thing, up, down, up kind of thing. And here everybody's kind of doing their own thing. You know, Seamus told me the other day, carrying the TV, racing like Simba kind of thing. So I'm just like, what is
Worship moves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
so I'm just like, what's going on, you know? But it was interesting. It was a lot more, what I liked about it was engaging. The pastor engages the audience responds back to the pastor, which is not something that really happens in Catholicism kind of thing. But the first time I came, I was lucky enough that there was no room in the bottom, so I was sitting up at the top. And I was able to really look at myself and look down on what, like, do I picture myself down there with those people? Do I picture myself worshiping the same way that they're worshiping? And I did. And that day I asked God, like, if this is it, then, you know, give me kind of a sign. And I'm on stage now, so.
Right. Really quickly, we need to move fast, but you were telling me that back home, you were going through a bit of stuff back home.
Yeah.
By a bit of stuff. Can you elaborate?
So I've been diagnosed with depression ever since I was about 9. So I've had clinical depression, PTSD, and anxiety.
Right.
So I've always kind of struggled with the whole God idea and why he wasn't there while I was going through all of this. So all of this came about because of domestic violence. So it's always kind of hard to, if you're real, then why weren't you there kind of thing.
Right.
But I now realize that, it's made me stronger, and it's just made me be more that confident in my faith and be more open about it. Like, I didn't realize it now, but he was always there. He was the one that got me through it, and got me to this point in my life. So.
Wow. That's super encouraging. Then you came on Young Adults Retreat a few months ago.
Yeah.
God really touched your life there as well.
Yeah. I've always gone on retreats, but always because my school kind of made me. And this time was the first time where I was like really excited and pumped to go to a retreat where I was like, oh, I want to go kind of thing. And I was there and I prayed the entire time. I've been praying for friends since I've moved across the world without knowing anybody yet. Friends, just peace with things that I had in mind, peace at work kind of thing. And I spoke in tongues, and that was, whoa, like, what was that? Like, I still can't,
That's a normal response.
Yeah, I still, sit in bed, and I'm like, oh, my God, kind of thing. Like, who was that? But obviously Jesus, but yeah, it was such a great thing. And one of the things I was, really struggling with is telling people that I'm a, Christian, and when people ask me, oh, do you go to church? I don't want to be the churchy, you don't want to be known as that. I mean, now I don't care, but you always have that kind of scared, especially when you're new to church. And that was something I've been struggling with, and I've been praying over. And I was really blessed to have that. When we were praying, Seamus actually came up to me and he said, the Lord speak to me, and he told me that you're kind of struggling with this. You're struggling with letting people know about your Christianity and stuff like that. And I was just like, whoa. Like, who told you kind of thing, And I was just like, that was such a great, sign from God that, I was there for a purpose. He kind of reinforced the fact that, you're here. I heard your prayer about, what you're struggling with, and I'm answering this directly, and that was through Seamus, and that was really great.
That's brilliant, Ryan. James Townsend, are you still there?
I am.
All of this all started with this girl moving into your uni share house.
It's amazing, isn't it?
How do you feel listening to these guys give their testimonies when all it started was with you talking about your faith, explaining the difference between Catholicism and Christianity, and playing board games and getting your weird church friends over? Did you ever, when you did that, did you ever imagine that this would ensue?
No, not at all. It just blows me away how God will use just a small action to do all this. And Amy's done a great job. She's just exceeded every expectation of someone who's so new to faith and then serving and being so great at sharing her faith. But it just makes me happy to hear these stories.
That's pretty cool, hey. We started by talking about Andrew just says to his brother Simon, oh, you should come and check out this Jesus guy. Andrew had no idea what would unfold. Jesus still builds his church the same way today. When an everyday person says, oi, you should check out this Jesus guy, there's something in this, and you never know what's going to come. We could keep talking all night, and in fact that would be pretty enjoyable, especially if we got Andrea back and just keep going for hours. But we need to wrap up, and so can we please give all these guys and James Townsend